Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel.
Okay, that's done. So bearing number 1, bearing number 2. Need our little shim. I have to say this kit is going together quick, quicker than a lot of kits I've built recently. It just, the differentials just seem to go quickly. I mean, that could be because I've probably built, 10 or 12 differentials in the last month, and not to mention servicing existing diffs. So that could be part of it, but it does seem to be a simple operation, well thought out design. So far, we're really early in the process. Okay, that's that. So rear differential. I'm going to start with one shim instead of trying to cram 2 in there, and see how it fits right off the bat. Okay, let's check our left to right here. Now there's nothing. I don't think I could get a second one in there, just like the front. And the gear runs nice and smooth. So let's go ahead and lube this up. Sorry if I did any of that off camera. Not much to see anyway. Okay, and I need to get the titanium screws out for that. Looks like I bought just enough of that size, but that's kind of what I was going for. I do want to keep spares around for other projects, but these things are so darn expensive, you really usually end up just buying exactly what you need and no more. Sometimes it's hard to get these screwdrivers into the heads of these bolts. The tolerances are so tight, but that's what keeps them from stripping out. It's what makes these such good hex drivers. You'll notice that I switch back and forth. These are so expensive that I don't waste them on steel hardware. I've got regular nut drivers I'll use on steel hardware. If it was like one that was damaged and I wanted to make sure that I got it out one last time or something like that, I would definitely turn to these to help with that kind of a situation. But otherwise, no. So let me just confirm the shock mount situation for the rear. Okay, they are rear mounted. When I say that, versus these being front mounted, it means the side of the tower that they mount on, do they attach in front of the A-arms? Your swing arms are going to be right here, or on the back side. So basically for this vehicle, they go on the extreme ends. So this one is going to face forward, whereas this one, the cutaway, faced rearward. Okay. So, sway bar time. And for this, I'm going to need to consult my my build sheet because I may be using different sizes on my initial build out. I picked up some spares as I usually do. Okay. So I'm going to be using a 2.2 in the front and a 2.6 in the rear. They have a 2.4 in the front and 2.6. Okay. So I'm going to pause up for a moment to gather some parts. Okay, so we're into bag E, and we've got our front A-arms. If you look at these things, you can see that does not look like a 10th scale arm. That looks like an 8th scale arm. So I'm going to go ahead and get these things off their parts trees. I'm going to go ahead and trim off all the little suspension adjusters. They plug into these two guys here. This is something that is composite that you couldn't get aluminum versions of. I would not do so. I don't think there's anything wrong with these. They're so tight and small. There's not going to be any flexibility there that would be an issue. You'd probably just be adding weight going with aluminum. They're all going to have the same little rubber pieces you know, stuck into them to hold the suspension arms, so you're not tightening anything up by going with aluminum over the composite plastics. So I would think this would be the best option for this particular part. Okay, we are getting ready to put the rear end section together. So we've got our rear sway bar. And we've got our C and D blocks, as they are called. The C block is the front one, and these two, combined with the various inserts, are going to orient our kingpins, and those are going to orient our rear arms. How much in the front it's toe, in the rear it's oh God, I always forget. I'm sorry. It's 3 in the morning again. And here I am. Okay, in any event, they orient the rear kingpins, and I am using a set of Lunsford titanium kingpins. I always keep the nice steel ones around, put them in the box in case there's a crash and I gotta replace one of them in the field, and there isn't a handy vendor around and I don't happen to have the 40 bucks or so on hand, but these are just so light. I mean, you know, I'm going to go through this exercise one more time, just because, you've seen that, you know, stuff weighs about half, and, you know, a little more than half, sometimes a little less, depends on the item. Okay, there's our 2 stock kingpins at 12, and here are the 2 titanium kingpins at 6.9. So big difference as usual. Big weight savings, and again, just add it up. It would be really nice to get to the point where, when, you know, I mean, there's a point that there's a weight limit for the class. Okay, the car has to weigh a certain amount minimum. And they do check on that kind of stuff, especially if you're beating everybody. The thing is that when it would be nice to have the kit at such a point that it is less than the minimum weight, which means you've got to add ballast, which means you have a choice of where to add it. If you want to add weight in the front to help keep the front down, you can do that. If you want to put it in the rear, you can also do things like a lot of manufacturers make weight plates, like brass plates that will go underneath your battery, which is usually the lowest point in the car and the centermost point in the car, which would be the best possible place to add weight. You're lowering the center of gravity. Every extra ounce that you put in that place there at the bottom lowers the CG for the vehicle overall. And it gets you, over the weight limit and by just enough, and then you're as light as you can be, and you've got, the ability to balance the car with weight. Instead of just being kind of stuck with what you got, and any extra ballast you add for tuning just makes the car that much heavier, that much slower around the track as a result. So, it's up to you how you play it. Anyway, I'm going to throw the pair of titaniums that I don't need at the moment in there, put my steels aside for future, and here are the two that I'm going to use right now. And let me go ahead and take these Lunsford stickers out of the pack here and set them aside. Never hurts to show the flag for your various manufacturers that you like their products. Okay, so first thing we need to do is get our little spacers, and that's the one thing I did not cut off of a parts tree. Usually these are aluminum. I'm just fine with them being made out of a plastic or nylon composite material. Plastics have gotten so smart over the years. X-ray does a lot of materials work. They spend a lot of time tinkering with different mixtures of plastic and carbon fiber threads and things like that to get really a variety of different materials where you can have enough flex that you get good feel, but not so much flex that it's rubbery. You've got to deal with, is it too brittle? Is it going to snap? There's a whole factor of things, and you want different types of material for different parts of the car, and to be able to fine-tune the type of plastic to the application of a specific parts, not just like, okay, this is the plastic we're going to use everywhere on the car. No, you've got like 5 or 6 different kinds of plastic on the vehicle in different areas of the vehicle for different purposes. That's awesome. So, grub screw. And since this is plastic, there's no need to put any Loctite on here. Plastic will do the job. Don't need to go all the way on there, just threading it. Now they say put them 30.2 millimeters apart. That's a little hard to come by if you ask me. I'm just going to space them apart to get this together, and then once this is in place, I'm going to eye it up to center and then adjust them to a distance that I feel is, provides enough motion without too much tension. So, kind of move them back to where the bend begins. And you want the little, there's kind of like a chamfered edge, but they've got it on both sides, so it's, I guess these parts are ambidextrous. You could put it on either side. So there we are, and once this is in place, I'll get rid of that little bit of left and right play. So these are going to bolt on with, let's see, what kind of hardware. TKR 1522s. Okay, the 1522s. Where are my 1522s? There we go, 1522s. 3x8s. Now, this is very light duty here. I'm going to either use titanium or aluminum for that. Button heads, and I've got lots of titanium button heads right now. So, I got lucky and I found someone who was selling a couple of 50 packs. Very cheap. It's probably not the highest quality titanium. It's not going to be Lunsford quality, but you know, for a lot of this stuff, it'll be fine. So anyway, 15 by 8s, and I need 2 of them. I'm going to go ahead and use the titanium. Aluminum would be a little bit lighter, but let me see what I got. No, I'm going to go titanium. I'm not going to worry about aluminum on this particular kit. I pulled out 4 because I know I'm going to need 2 more on the other side when we get around to the front. So I'm just going to leave those in the bin. Just kind of overlaps. That's nice. You know, in theory, depending on how you do your adjustment, or when you want to take off the back cover here to service the diff, you could just undo the 2 grub screws on the ball sockets for the front attachment for the sway bars and take the cover off with the sway bar attached to it and not have to remove that. It's going to be the same number of screws. It'll just probably be easier to get it out from under there. I'll have to try it both ways when I service this. And I don't think I need to worry about tapping these. It's a very short distance that they're being screwed in, so I think they'll be fine. I wish I had you know, had the time and the patience and everything to, not to mention the organization, to take all of the screws that I'm going to replace with titanium and weigh them, you know, in a little bowl up against all of the steel counterparts that I'm replacing. I'd be willing to bet it's upwards of 1/4 pound to 1/2 pound, especially if you include things like these titanium parts, because these cars have a lot of screws on them. Okay, there we got a nice smooth, but no left and right, but nice easy rocking motion. So that's good. So now I need to put in the grub screws that will keep it from rocking that way. And being able to just remove the, well, I guess that wouldn't matter anyway. You wouldn't have to worry about readjusting all that. So, you know, never mind. Just kind of screw these in until you feel them start to turn down. Just, you know, move the thing with a spare finger as you're doing it to make sure you're still rocking. And when it stops moving easy like that, just back it off like 1/8 of a turn. And there we have a nice smooth motion. We've got a little jitter on that side. Let's tighten that in. There we go. So we got nice smooth action here. It doesn't jiggle, it doesn't go in and out. So that's perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. So it's time to attach the C block, which is the one with the little dip in it and the key points down. We need to attach that up here with those are 1327s. Okay, so those are flatheads, 3x16. Here are 2 3x16 titanium flatheads. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pause while I tap these holes real quick. Okay, that's done. So there we go. And let's see. D-block attaches with, what does D-block attach with? Those are the really long ones. Remember, these are the ones that are going to seal the case. Those are the M3x40 flatheads, and I bought them. I remember ordering these. There we go. I got 2 more for the front end. So, I need to pause the video again and cut some threads here. So, this is just about the time we're going to put on the D-block, and at the same time we put on the rear bumper. That's supposed to attach here. Like this. I was like, wait a second, it's countersunk there. There's our countersinks for it. Fits right on like that. And then these major long screws are going to go through here, and then they're going to go all the way through the case, and then right about there is where they start threading in after the seam. So, I've tapped the holes before we do this and put on our rear arms. I want to do the other stuff that needs to be done on these swing arms. We have, let's see, let me tape these and get them out of the way before I lose some of those. Those are going to go in the new parts box, which I have started. I wouldn't be surprised if these are a combination of front and rear pieces. Now, as long as I'm at it, I might as well take these and put them somewhere. Okay, so we're going to have a pair of bump screws to adjust ride height and droop, and we're going to have the screws or grub screws that are going to hold our front sway bar. Okay, so if this is forward, and so this would be our left. Just let me see if there's any markings on here that let us know that for sure. I am sure, but never hurts to look. No, I don't see an L anywhere. No worries. They are obviously, they're asymmetrical. There's no way you're messing it up if you aren't, know what you're looking for. So we have our 2 sway bar arms, and I like these little plastic types because they're not adjustable. Number 1, it's one less thing we got to screw together. Number 2, if they are molded correctly, they are exactly the same height. We don't have to worry about an asymmetry in length on one of them. So, okay, we've got our ball links here. And we've got a couple more grub screws, and these little guys are going to need some Loctite on them. And then we have our 2 droop screws, which we will thread in ahead of time. And see, you can tell a droop screw because it's got it's like a grub screw at one end with a hex nut hole at the other at one side and a head at the other, so it can be adjusted so that the screw head is pressing down on a tab that comes off the frame. Oh, wrong size. Ton. Okay. So now we can use our handy Tekno tool to pop these on. I love this little wrench. I've gotten so much use out of it since I bought it. I'm finally using it on a Tekno kit. Pushed it all the way through that time. My bad. Let's see. There's usually one side that's, there we go. It's a little, just shaped a little different. There we go. Okay, and then we got a pair of, let's see, these are 28s. So those are M3x18. Definitely want to put the titanium out there because it's unsprung weight. Which I've talked about many times in many videos for you guys. So you should all know what unsprung weight is and why it is so important. Important that you minimize it. And this is a pair of screws that are very unlikely that you're going to remove them except during a major servicing, where you're just taking everything apart for the purposes of cleaning. And even then, you might not take them out. Oh, I got this in backwards. Busy talking. There we go. Could have just popped that ball stud out and switched it around the other direction, but taking the screw out was just as easy. Again, not bothering to tap the threads on this because it's not something that you're going to take in and out. And it's probably something, like I said, that will never come out. Okay, now we should check to make sure that, that's odd, these all the right size. Wait a second, I've got this backwards. Okay, there we go. We should make sure these things rotate smoothly, and I need to get out a reamer for this. Just making sure it's not the pin. Now I can feel a little stiffness at this end. Let's check this. Same thing. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me just confirm. Okay, those are 4 millimeters. And they are all the same size. Haven't had to pull these tools out in a while. course, it will be the last one that I pick. 4mm. This is a reamer, and these are made by Dynamite. It's probably the best brand of reamers I've come across so far. They're nice and sharp for being so small. Basically, it's designed to do this. Just go back and forth a few times. It's a little snug still. It's better to do a little bit at a time. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So I can just well, wait a second. I haven't done the grub screws yet, so one moment on that. But I'm going to get this one done. See, it's still a little tight, and if you hold it and it won't like drop through, see, the stiffness is at the other end. It's at this end here. That's really good. It's still a little bind there. Just go at it one more time. Now this should just drop through. Yeah, good. Nice smooth action. Nothing's tight, but no wiggle. So excellent. Okay. So I'll leave that out because I assume we will have a similar problem in the front. Okay, our group screws go in from below. And there's no point in trying to set them to a particular height. I'm just gonna run them most of the way in. And that will get dealt with later when it's time to tune the suspension and do an initial setup. Okay. So let's see. Line up our D block on our pins here. Oh, that's got a lot of toe in it. Let me check the setups on that. I'm not sure I want to run that much toe. I think the kit has them the opposite direction as far as the kit setup. I think I'm going to go for mid-ground on these. Even though the build out that I've been working from has it the other way. Okay. Okay, before I just go at that, I'm going to check out a couple of different build sheets and kind of figure out where I want to go with this. So I'm going to pause up. Okay, I went with a slightly less aggressive setup for the inserts. It's not far from what I was going to use. It's pretty far from the kit setup. What's recommended, I'm using a handful of build sheets, setup sheets by professional drivers, and I'm going off of the sheets that apply to the terrain or the type of tracks that I'm going to be racing at, which is indoor, clay, hard pack, groomed, sometimes damp, but very slick and very smooth. And so I made a choice based on what I thought I was going to go with, and which just seemed like a little too much. And I may go back to that at some point and give it a try, but it just seemed like it was more toe than I normally like in the rear of the vehicle. Anyway, if I find that I'm having stability issues, that'll be one of the first things that I try, is swapping those little inserts back, which is a nice, easy to do kind of thing. So anyway, I've already done threaded up these holes. So I'll slide these screws in and tighten them on up. I went ahead and connected the sway bar. Now this is an area that makes the rear end a little harder, and I'm sure it's going to be the same thing with the front. To take off this diff, or to get at the differential, to get this rear half of the case off, means we got to take off the D block, which means we're not necessarily going to be taking off these arms, but you got to work on the car in a way, in an area where they're not just going to, fall off. So bear that in mind if you find yourself having to service the vehicle, like at the track, you got to swap out that diff or change up the fluid in it or something like that. It's not quick and easy. There's a few manufacturers that have got some, where they really designed around the idea of getting at the diff, making it as accessible as possible, the fewest bolts or screws to have to take out. And it just depends on the vehicle. Some cars you don't need to get to the diffs very often. If you've got a two-wheel drive vehicle with a ball diff, you adjust the diff from the outside with a screw. You never have to go into it unless you're cleaning it or if it's damaged and you're doing a rebuild. You can, race a season without ever opening up the diff. So, okay, got that rear assembly going together nicely. And this is where we're going to come to another Tekno part that does not come with the kit. This is a set of high roll center hubs. A lot of the builds, the guys are running these as opposed to the stock ones. I'm going to take their word for it and go ahead and give them a try. Either way, I'm going to have the old pieces, so if I don't like it, I can swap them out. But in case you're interested, there's your part number. HRC stands for High Roll Center. And okay, let's see, we need bag F. Here is bag F, and there's a lot in bag F. It's already stapled shut because I needed to open it to check on something the other day when I was ordering screws. Come on, you. There we go. Should have just used the scissors. Okay, now just so I don't make a mistake, I'm going to take these. Well, let's take a look at them. Let's compare, and then I'm going to put them away. Okay, there's our real difference right there. It's obvious. The location of the hole. It's too bad they didn't go the low-C direction or associated direction and put an insert in here so that we could have as many as you know, 3 or 4 different heights. Also, we could have toe adjustments out as well at that end. But in any event, I'm going to go ahead and put these in the parts box. Stick them in so they, there we go in one cubby. Okay. If these are spacers, depending on where they go, I'm going to toss them in favor of aluminum. I might keep one small one around to have a little bit of crush, but if it's anything, you know, semi-critical, I don't like plastic washers. And turnbuckles, I've got Lunsford titanium turnbuckles. I like the way they've got everything organized. The kit does go together, you know, easy. We did our diffs, we did our front and rear ends with our towers, and then it's, you know, everything for the rear, you know, bag after bag after bag, and then I'm sure it's going to be everything front, and then we'll do connect everything together on the chassis, and then it'll be, shocks will be one of the last things that we do. This is going to be part of our bumper assembly. 4 in the morning. I'm going to push a little further. Okay. Let's build these up. Let's see, is there a left or a right? Or are they just, are they the same size? Or the same angle? I'm referring to the hole through here. And there does not appear to be anything that marks them as left or right. So let's get our bearings. Yeah, I think I jumped a page. Hang on a second. Nope, turnbuckles must be on that side. Yep. Okay. Got both bearings. My rule of thumb for these CV type joints is that you cannot put on too much lube. You can always, you know, wipe it off after the fact, but you really want to make sure that these parts are well coated on the contact areas. And we have several holes, but they are all in the same, you know, position on the out drive here. Here's a hole. Now, you need to make sure the pin doesn't get away from you, because there's nothing that holds it in. Some cars, there's like a grub screw. Some cars use like a little metal clip. The way these are designed, the bearing itself, the inner reese, that's why they use these large inner diameter bearings, because this slides in like that, and now the pin cannot escape. It stays centered, and that's just all there is to it. So let me figure out where my towel went. And there's no bushings or anything. We have some nice light little wheel hexes and a couple more pins and a couple of grub screws. And we definitely need Loctite on the grub screws. So I'm going to go ahead and prep that first before I put the pin through there. Okay. So now we slide our pin through the hole in the out drive. Slide on our hex. Push it in over the pin. Push it in as firmly as it'll go. Hold from both sides. And tighten this down. There we go. Now we can wipe off excess grease and anything else. And there we have our assembly. There's a little bit of play. Could put a shim in there. I may revisit that later, just to tighten them both up, because it's going to, this end, you know, it's just a dog bone, so that's going to go in and out of an out drive as the suspension moves. So this is going to be able to have play as well, and you don't want the wheel plastic, you know, touching down. So I would think that it would be a good idea to put a few shims in there just so this stays tight. And yeah, I'll go ahead and do that once it's assembled, because I'll have it up on a stand and it'll be a lot easier to do. Or it won't be a lot easier to do, but it'll be as easy to do as now. I want to stay focused on the build. Okay, that's the two of them done. And those plastic washers are indeed spacers that are going to go in here between those guys there. So, give me just a moment. Okay, now, let's see. Just want to check something with the calipers. Yep. Okay, now we're supposed to have, I believe we're supposed to have is it a 2, a 1, and a half, or two ones and a 2. So that's 1. It's 1. 2. 2. So we are supposed to put, looks like 5 millimeters, 2 2s and a 1. So these 0.5s that I pulled out. And the setup I'm running is for a longer wheelbase. It says 4 millimeters in the front and a 1 in the rear. So there's my setup. What that does is the stock setup is basically putting 2 millimeters in front and 3 millimeters in the rear. So 1, 2, and a 2 and a 1. That moves the, if you were just looking at a center line for this, you're moving it forward by a 0.5 millimeter. So center would be 2.5 on either side. Okay. The setup I'm running says 4 millimeters and then 1. So I'm moving the axle 2 millimeters further rearward than the stock setup. Does that make sense? So basically this will let you lengthen or shorten the wheelbase of the vehicle. So we need the 2 of these. And some nuts. And it's too bad that Lunsford didn't have a pair of titanium threaded kingpins for the outer, because this is where you really want, you know, the further out you go from the vehicle, the more the unsprung weight has an effect on the suspension. You know, it's nice to have them inboard. That lightens the car overall, but it's not unsprung weight. It's part of the chassis because it's attached to the chassis itself. It doesn't move with the suspension. Anything that moves with the suspension is unsprung weight. Like this whole assembly here is unsprung weight, all of it, including the axle. These washers are unsprung weight. So these kingpins are unsprung weight. If I could cut this weight in half, it's not a lot overall, but it all adds up. It all has an effect. It's amazing how precise these little cars are and how even small changes do affect them. And if you're an accomplished enough driver, you can tell the difference between these subtle changes. I don't need any grease on here because the plastic is basically self-lubricating. And we'll do the from this side so it's easier to capture the thinnest one. Oh, wow, these spacers aren't big enough for these. Okay, I've got to see what else I've got. I may need to use the plastic until I can get some new spacers. I don't think I've got anything that is going to fit. That's a bummer. I'm going to get online right now and find some spacers with the right inner diameter. Okay, yeah, see, everything I have is like, you know, 1/10 stuff, and this is all 1/8. Okay, 3.5.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.